Hi guys, so I'm just gonna get right into it. About a week ago, an hour after hitting the gym, I noticed I lost hearing in my left ear. Felt like I was underwater, and a very high-pitched ringing sound called tinnitus, I used to pronounce it tetanus, started ringing in my ear. Asking all my friends and doing the research, it's normal and usually goes away. My cousin is an ENT, an ears, nose, and throat doctor. I messaged her, and she said even in babies, sometimes it could take 4 months for that to go away. It's very natural, but you should still go to the doctor, get it checked out. I went to the doctor the following day. The doctor said, it looks like there's fluid behind your eardrums, which happens from a cold. I had a cold about more than 10 days ago, which I knew it wasn't the cold because I wasn't really congested and I'm really on top of my health. But I thought, sure, the doctor knows. He looked in my ears. He said there's fluid behind the eardrum. That will subdue in a couple days. It should get better. He said, give us a call if it's not better. A couple days come around and my hearing has not changed. The ringing is just as strong, and I start doing more research. And if there's one thing I want you guys to learn from this story, especially with the American healthcare, not to blame any of the doctors, they're doing their job, but you need to be advocating for yourself, and you need to be doing so much more. I called, told them, hey, I don't think it's what you guys said. I need to see an ENT. Said, okay, the next ENT appointment is 2 weeks from today. So I did more research on my own, and a doctor friend of mine sent me a video, I will link in the description below, of a friend who woke up and had the exact same story. An hour after working out, just the left ear, and lost their hearing. He shares how there's a 72-hour period where you need to treat it with prednisone. That's the most important. And he went through this really intense treatment called hyperbaric oxygen therapy because it was the only thing at giving him a shot at raising his chance, which is 1 in 3 chances of getting his hearing back. He got diagnosed with sudden sensory neural loss. So keep in mind this is 3-4 days after, because I'm thinking this is gonna go away. The doctor had given me Flonase, which is for allergies and nasal congestion, and it did nothing. So I go do some research and decide I'm gonna go get a hearing test, because first of all, my healthcare is not booking me one for 2 weeks. I found one for $70. I went over the reviews with my cousin, which you could also do with ChatGPT. The point of this hearing test was they're gonna test if there is fluid behind my eardrum. They're gonna do that. And 2, what is the hearing loss, if there's any, in my left ear? I do the test. This was one day before Thanksgiving. I was supposed to fly and stay with my family in Oregon. And as soon as I get the results and I call my cousin and she explains it, I start crying. Because I know that this is sudden sensory hearing loss and I have a 1 in 3 chance that it goes back to normal. And if you don't know much about me, the one thing that I love the most is music and listening to music and making music. And I make techno music and I rely on my ear heavily to be able to hear frequencies. And when you can't tell a difference between low, mid, high frequencies, it really dulls. And not to add that there's a massive ringing in my ear at all time. Now, I wanted to be cautious about sharing this story because I don't like putting this out in the world. And first of all, there's a quote my friend always says, and he says, how lucky are we to have these problems? My mom is almost completely deaf in her left ear. So when I told her, she was like, oh, you just have a little bit of hearing loss. It's okay. I can't even hear out of my left ear. And I'm like, that's not very helpful, Mom. And despite her Romanian immigrant advice that I'm being dramatic at the beginning, I am taking every single measure to repair my hearing. Number one, because I am privileged enough that I can take the time to do it. I can afford it, something so many people can't do. And those type of people usually end up losing their hearing forever. Number 2, because my hearing is honestly one of the most important things to me. So back to the quote, how lucky am I to have these problems? It could be much worse. I am healthy. I don't have a chronic disease. I haven't lost both hearing. My family is alive and healthy. If you can't tell, I've been reading a lot of Man Search Meeting when I've been doing the hyperbaric chamber, but I'm going to get into that. Sorry, my storytelling's all over the place. So I get my hearing test, go over the results with my cousin, and I practically can't hear any high frequencies. So my hearing is not completely gone, but a big chunk of it is. And I spend all day on the phone calling my healthcare trying to get me into an emergency ENT. The day before Thanksgiving, I am able to get a slot, which ironically was booked for 2 weeks ahead. So I call my healthcare and I push and I say, this is urgent. I'm in a short time frame. I'm already a week late into my treatment, by the way, having not been on steroids for a week when you're supposed to act within 72 hours if it is sudden sensory neural loss. And I say it is urgent. I need to see an ENT and I have to do the steroid steroid injection into my eardrum. They get me in the day before Thanksgiving. This is the same day I call my mom crying and tell her I'm not coming to Thanksgiving. I really miss my family and really want to see them, and everyone in my house has been gone and I've been alone, but that's okay because I'm fighting through it. I'm hoping that sharing this story will also create some awareness. Anyways, I go to the ENT. Everything he tells me is the same things that I've learned from this really helpful video, which I'll share, and from doing my own research. He doesn't even really push for the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I just say, I'm going to do this. Mind you, I have been messaging every single person in LA to find a hyperbaric oxygen chamber because it is extremely expensive therapy. I try to do one session for an hour before my ENT appointment because I managed to get one. I knew I have to act so quickly, and the whole point of hyperbaric oxygen therapy is that the sooner you do it, especially when you're doing the steroid, it can help your nerve or whatever inflammation is in your ear hopefully recover faster, but you have to be very consistent. I went for 1 hour in LA. It costs $330 for 1 hour. You are supposed to do up to 20 sessions. If you really want to feel progress, you could do 10 if you want to be more conservative, and you're supposed to do it for 2 hours a day, which was hilarious because this place also charging me didn't follow the actual protocol where you're supposed to do 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off. They tried to sell me a pack. It was going to cost between 6 to 12K. What type of normal person can just wake up to hearing loss and drop 12 grand on a treatment for hearing loss that's not even going to be covered on healthcare? First of all, insane. And also, just for the more you know, you're supposed to do 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off because the way hyperbaric oxygen therapy works. If you don't know what hyperbaric oxygen therapy is, if you're claustrophobic in any way, this is your worst nightmare. It is a chamber that you lock yourself in that takes at least 10 minutes to get out because of the pressure. The air pressure goes really high, and put on a mask around your nose, and you're inhaling oxygen at a very high atmosphere and high pressure. And the way that it works is that by overloading your body with more oxygen, it forces your body to activate like more healing. I'm not really wording this better. I got the gist of it. But you're like temporarily damaging your body by inhaling way more oxygen at a high pressure, and that's supposed to trigger really fast healing. And it's been used to treat a ton of illnesses. So at the ENT, he doesn't even bring up too much that this is the best chance I have at getting my hearing back. He doesn't even share with me that I have 1 in 3 chances of getting it back. But maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it's not that he wasn't uneducated. Maybe it was just because I came and I knew everything and I knew exactly what I needed. And the next thing I had to get was a steroid shot in my eardrum, which you're not supposed to poke holes in your eardrum if you have the choice. I don't really know if that heals, to be honest. It is by far the most uncomfortable thing I've experienced, and I've experienced pulling out my wisdom tooth and then getting a walnut stuck in that hole on the plane and not being able to get it out. They puncture a hole, you lay on your side, and they fill it up with fluid. So first you feel a needle in your ear, then you feel the fluid, and then you have to lie there on your side for 20 minutes so it gets in there. You just feel it like the most uncomfortable, most sensitive nerve getting filled, and it definitely increases the tinnitus for a little bit. But the point of this is that it's going to be localized where the inflammation is, and it should hopefully be more direct. Now, when you're getting treated for sudden sensory neural loss, you can take up to 3 steroid shots spaced 5 days apart. I have to go back Wednesday. I'm really not excited for that. So the doctor gives me the steroid shot and books me a hearing test for the next week, which is probably when I'm going to do my next shot, and to see if things get better. And they send me on my way. That's it. Which, again, there's really not that much he could have done. And the really shitty thing about hearing loss is people don't know the causes to this. And I think I can kind of piece together the cause. I love techno music. When I was younger, I wasn't always safe wearing earplugs, and when I went to raves, I loved to stand right by the speakers. I wanted to feel the bass in my bones. I did start wearing earplugs, but I don't even know if you're right in front of the bass, if you can even really be defending your ear, and I would love to crank up my music to maximum on every speaker, because I loved feeling the music, whether I'm in the gym or I'm driving. Music is my everything. For the last 2 years, I have changed a lot of these habits. I set up a little setting on my phone where even on your earbuds you don't let it go past a certain decibel that is known to cause hearing damage. It sounds really dramatic, but even when I went to my yoga classes, which play loud techno, sometimes I would bring earplugs because I could actually feel that my ear was getting sore. When I had my last DJ set a little bit ago, I actually felt like a migraine and a headache from practicing on the deck so much because I could feel my ears were getting fatigued. And sometimes the sounds are really not that loud and really subtle and can still be causing hearing damage, which is is why I would recommend using your phone, because your phone can measure decibels and just following your body. But if there's one thing that you can do, if you're going to a music show, bring your goddamn earplugs, because once you lose your hearing, you never get it back. And once you get tinnitus, it never goes away. So I've definitely been much more careful these last 2 years since I actually learned that this is a damage that doesn't come back. Unlike a lot of organs in your body, you can somehow reverse damage, but you can't. There's nothing, no way to reverse it on your ears. I suspect that it's probably related to that, but I'm also only 23, and most people who have this happen are not 23, but are people who've been musicians for a long time or a little bit older. But my whole point of sharing this is that it can literally happen to anyone, no matter how healthy you are. So I leave the ENT. It is a very sad pre-Thanksgiving day. I'm alone and I begin searching. First, all the hyperbaric are going to be closed the next day because it's Thanksgiving Day. And second, I'm Romanian. I don't want to give them my money. That's ridiculous. If you're paying by the hour, and if you count that you're taking 5-minute breaks every 20-minute interval, you actually have to book it for like 2.5 hours, because the maximum you can do for healing is 2 hours a day, which is what I need to be doing because I'm extremely behind, and you can't even book that, and they're ripping me off. So I pester my sister to message all of her super cool, smart, health hacking friends, and I find one person in LA who has one. So I message them. My sister says it's a big ask. It's Thanksgiving Day, and I say, I know, sister, but this is the most important thing. You have to do it. Lucky for me, my sister has really kind people in her circle. These people are so kind, they even invite me to their Thanksgiving. So here I am, Thanksgiving Day, all my family out of town, driving down to some stranger's house to go sit in their oxygen tank for 2.5 hours while they host a nice lavish Thanksgiving dinner. I show up in a giant sweater and sweats because it gets really cold in there, with about 4 or 5 books. Mind you, I have been reading 2 hours a day, and I have felt my vocabulary excel. Yesterday, I actually used a word that my sister almost didn't know. Sometimes I use words in sentences and I'm like, is that correct? And I'll check myself over. I'm like, oh my God, I nailed it. And just sometimes sticking those in there feels pretty cool. But anyways, so I show up. They're very nice to me. I get into the tank. There is a couple disclaimers I want to say. I'm pushing really hard to try to get my healthcare to let me do this, a insured health provider, because it's definitely not as safe as doing it as a hospital. It's definitely really scary in there. People have died, but out of their own idiocracies, not because the chamber was faulty or anything. For example, someone once brought a phone in, and you're not supposed to bring in a giant battery because it's at extremely high pressure and it can light a fire. Again, it takes a long time to get out of there. The other risk you need to be aware of is just brain damage if you're not careful. Hearing damage if you're going up and down in pressure too much, but that part is pretty self-explanatory. You control that. But mainly, there's not really someone monitoring me at all times, but I'm super duper cautious. And this one that I've been going to is in a garage near a very fast highway. So sometimes I feel a little rumble whenever the motorcycles go by, and I'm like, I hope this doesn't explode. And I'm not lying. I've probably done my Romanian Our Father many times in that chamber. But then I just keep reading my book and tell myself everything's gonna be okay. But 2.5 hours is a goddamn long time. And I'm not a person who could ever sit in silence. Mind you, read books for 2 hours. But I've been doing it. I'm on day 4, baby. So I find these nice people in LA. They let me use their oxygen chamber. I even joined their Thanksgiving. I come out of there pretty defeated, pretty exhausted, but glad that it's over. God, you're so relieved when you finish those 2 hours. And they let me join their dinner. Everyone's so nice and really aware about health things too. I learned a couple tips. They gave me a couple vitamins that supposedly might help with this. One is NAC, which there's these little hairs in your ear, which is part of what makes you receive and hear sound. So it's supposed to maybe help bring some of that growth back. A lot of soldiers would use it for more. There's a specific type of magnesium, I think magnesium L-threonate, that is also good just for the nerve healing. I also found out all of these just using ChatGPT. I don't think the supplements will make a difference, but definitely worth looking into. And I joined their Thanksgiving dinner after stealing their oxygen, and everyone's really nice. I didn't want to impose, and I was thinking like, oh, how am I gonna make this work? Like, I can't pay $1 gazillion for this treatment. And they said you can come back every day, and I have since then. So I got so lucky, and that was the reason I had to stay in LA, because it's probably one of the only cities that you could find a friend with a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. The reason they had it was because one of them is a health founder who works in this specific space, and he built a company, and he's not even home anymore, and his brother just has it in the garage. So I've been using that tank. Anyways, the first day in the chamber, I read Man's Search for Meaning, which there was a moment after that I thought I was stuck in the chamber and it took me 20 to 30 minutes to figure out how to get out. I definitely panicked in some ways that I shouldn't have, and it was partly because I had just read a memoir from a Holocaust survivor, so I actually thought I was going to die. So the first day was really scary. Wouldn't recommend that. Do your research and make sure you know how to get out, because I didn't realize you have to wait a little bit to get out, and I kept spamming all the buttons and turning down all the dials, and I couldn't get out, and no one could hear me because it's soundproofed as hell in there. Literally, you're like in a glass tank. And then after 30 minutes of being an absolute idiot, I got out and prayed to God again. Again, this whole experience has just made me really grateful to be alive. The second day, I read Danny Wrench's book. If you don't know who that is CEO of chess.com and a good friend of mine. And he grew up in a chess cult. His book is called Dark Squares. It's really fascinating. I am a chess player myself, and whenever I read stories that are just around the chess world, it makes me more appreciative of the culture I grew up in. Chess is a really boring sport. You're just sitting in silence in a room for 6 hours, and it's very rare that we get really fascinating experiences that people are able to find a way to articulate or put in something else and share with the world. And so this book, obviously you had Queen's Gambit and whatnot, but this has been a great read in my chamber. I still am finishing it, and ironically, as I finished my session, I got to the part where Danny gets a terrible ear infection that lasts 2 years, where he is in so much pain he has to stop everything he's doing. So that was really ironic. I'm simultaneously have to prepare for a chess tournament this week. Starts next week. It is, when I say the most important chess tournament of my career, I am not being dramatic. If I lose, I will lose all respect. And if I win, I'm going to donate all of it to the Daniel Nerditsky Fund, which is for a beloved chess player who recently passed. And I really want to win in his honor. And I don't want to say that so that my opponents pity me, so I'm not going to tell them. But I want to win for Danya. So that means I'm going to train. Beside having fixed the cost part of the hyperbaric chamber, it also takes a shit ton of your day. I have to drive to the center. I have to do usually 2.5. It'll take me like 2.5 to 3 hours, because you have to count the time where you're depressurizing, where you're getting up there. Once in a while, I do have to use the bathroom, which is really unfortunate because it adds an extra 30 minutes. The other day, there was a paperclip in my book. After I finally spent 20 minutes getting up there in elevation, how to get down, I was afraid the paperclip was going to light on fire. It's not, but I'm just being super, super cautious. So that practically is taking me 4 hours at least every single day. In this study that I've been reading, he has done it for, I think on day 8, he saw results. But realistically, you should do it for like 20 days. Even if I solve this hearing loss and this tinnitus, it could come back. So I think I'm genuinely trying to go every single day. I haven't been working out right now because I don't have time. I have to prioritize this. I'm trying to figure out how to manage my time. Today, I'm thinking that I'm going to bring in a physical chessboard, and I got a lot of books with actual chess puzzles, and I can study chess inside the chamber because I can't bring a laptop and my brain is not sharp, and I would be spending my free hours doing chess practice right now, but I have to spend my free hours in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So today I'm going to see how that goes. I have also been really looking forward to the new books that I get every day. I've been asking more people for book recs, and every day when I bring my books, I have a new collection, and it's something I look forward to in the chamber, and it's the simple things like that make some light and not a very fun experience. That is what I'm going to do today. Get really sleepy in there. It's really hard, honestly, not to fall asleep, and it takes me a really long time to start reading or start studying, but this is a good reminder. The first day I spent a solid 1 hour in the chamber trying to figure out how to set up the TV, because this is a super bougie one that has a TV and it doesn't work, and after losing an hour trying to set it up, so then it ended up spending like 4 or 5 hours total in that thing, I decided that this is God's sign that I should read books, because the other day I got in a really weird discussion on Twitter with this man who was just telling me I should read more books. He was like kind of a father figure. He was a chess player, and I said, "Thank you, wise sir, for your advice," and I did start reading. He said even 15 minutes a day before bed is really good, and I tried, but the book that I happened to pick up was one that my sister was reading, which was called If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. It's a book about AI reaching super intelligence and how it's projected that we have maybe 5 to 10 years, and I'm gonna get into that another time. So I did try reading that night, and I didn't really enjoy it, and even though that random man on Twitter kept reminding me, and I really wanted to take his advice because it felt important, I couldn't really get into reading. I would pick up a couple pages before bed and that was it. But this is the first time in a really long time, when I say long time, probably since I was in high school, where you start reading a book and you actually get submerged into the book and it takes your brain off of things. And there are some moments that I really enjoy in the chamber when I'm reading. What I prefer not to be in there? Yes, but I like that this has brought me closer to reading, and that's my cherry on top of this. Sorry, I'm so ADHD. The storytelling has been all over the place. I want to make sure I've covered my bases. For anyone reading this who may have been going through the same thing or have tinnitus themselves, so many of the greatest musicians and producers have tinnitus. Like, I was watching a video yesterday by Rick Beato, a super famous producer who has had tinnitus his entire life, and he was sharing how sometimes it comes and goes, and on the days where he has silence, you get a couple minutes of silence and you can just listen to the birds, and it's so beautiful, and how much you enjoy it, and how they would do anything to get that moment. And I can't hear the silence right now because there's a super high pitch ringing in my ear. And really, if it doesn't go away, you just have to learn to live with it, and you have to pretend it's not there, which is not my top pick. But I know that I am in a really pivotal moment right now where if I act on it, maybe I have a good chance. I'm really lucky. I had friends who educated me. Again, emphasize the fact that my doctors in healthcare didn't really tell me a lot of these basic things, and you just have to advocate for your health. So I will keep you guys updated with my journey, and maybe I'll show you guys a little vlog from my chamber. I can't really film in there because I can't bring any electronics, but I will see. All I can do is stick to this regimen. I'm going every day, and I'm spending as much goddamn time in that stupid chamber as I can. And on the days when I have to work a lot more, I'll have to do 90 minutes, but I have been doing 2 hours every day for the last 3 days. It is my 4th day, and I'm just gonna keep with it. If you're a young person who enjoys music, please wear your earplugs and listen to your body. I think that's all I have to share. That is my update. I wanted to give you guys a little update on here because I have not been super active and whatnot because of this treatment. Like I said, it's really encompassing all of my time. But despite that, I still filmed a DJ set, which I will be posting. And I'm still going to make music despite not really hearing through my left ear because it is what I love. And it is even more of a gift from God to be able to hear music. So gonna keep at it. I hope you guys are all healthy, taking care of yourselves, and I will see you later from my chamber.